Okay, Shalom Aleichem, everybody, and welcome. It is my honor and privilege to have with us Rabbi Sholom Levin, who is known many of his svarim that he wrote on the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, and the svarim in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. Many of us, when you're using the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch and Hilchos Shabbos, we learn it with a lot of his extra comments that he writes. And so when we just finished learning Hilchos Beirer, and we discussed that the Alter Rebbe said one thing in the Shulchan Aruch, another thing in the Siddur, and we want to know if he could, how do you deal with certain matters in Hilchos Beirer? I thought I'm going to go straight to the top. The one and anything that's detailed, you got to go and really dissect the halacha. So I asked Rabbi Levin. Rabbi Levin doesn't need too many titles. He's known as the Rebbe's librarian. He wrote many svarim, a big Talmud Chacham. And hopefully, by the time we finish this year, we'll master, at least in general, Hilchos Beirer. Now, I don't know if everybody, because in our group, the Hilchos Shabbos group got Rabbi Levin's handout. I don't know if it came out to every group, but whoever has it, if you want to print it out, print it out. If not, you'll listen to Rabbi Levin. Rabbi Levin, floor is yours.
The basic rules of the Melacha of Beirer, the Alter Rebbe is explaining in the beginning of Siman Shin Yud Tes by saying there are two kinds of Beirer. One is Beirer Psoiles B'toich Eichel. When you have a mixture of Eichel and Psoiles, you take out the Psoiles, it's Beirer Minatero. In any case you do this, it's Osur and Chayev. The second kind of Beirer is when you're taking out the Eichel and you leave the Psoiles. This kind, sometimes it's Osur Minatero and sometimes it is Mutter. When is it Osur Minatero? Why is it different? Because when you have a mixture of Eichel and Psoiles and you take the Eichel, you are not Beirer. You're just eating like this. It's derech achille. You take the food and you eat it. You're not separating them. If you take out the Psoiles, that means you're separating them. But if you take out the Eichel to eat, it's derech achille. So therefore, it's not Beirer, but it has two noim. When you could take out the Eichel Metoich Psoiles. One night is you should take it with your hands, not with a special kli that is made for that. If you take it out with a special kli, it's not called derech achille. You're not eating, you're separating, because you're separating it with a special keli. The second rule is that you have to do it before you eat, not 2 hours earlier. If you take out the food from the Eichel from the Psoiles 2 hours earlier and 2 hours later you are going to eat it, it's not derech achille. You're separating them in order to be able to eat it 2 hours later. So there is two rules, two noim in this heter. In order to be able to do it, you have to do it with your hands and you have to eat it right away within the hour or so.
Today, when people eat with forks and spoons, it changes?
No, we're speaking about a kele that is made to separate, not made to eat. And as we will soon discuss, the cases that you do it, and you are still chayiv because you're doing it in a way that it is a kele made to separate Eichel from Psoiles. Let's see how the Alter Rebbe is explaining it in the beginning of Siman Shin Yud Tes. He says, a boirer who me'ovis meloches, שכן במשכון היו בררים הפסלס מינוס הממונים. לפיכך, כל הבויrer פסולס מתיכו איכל, אפילו בידי יחס, אפילו כדי לאכל לאלתר, חייב. Even though it's not with the kele, even though you're eating it right away, but still when you take out the pselas, it's considered separating. It's not considered derech achile. Aval aboira oichel mitera pselas, you take out the food. If you take it to the le'echel altar, eine chayev. Ellen ken berer benapoi bikvoro, sheken derer breirosei. They are special kelim to separate. But if you eat it with your hands and you take out the echel mitera pselas to eat it right away, then it's called derech achile. Im berer oichel biyode, כדי לאכל לאלתר, מותר מפני שנטילת האיכל מתיר הפסילס, כדי לאכל מיד, אין זה מעין מלאכה כלל, שדרך אכילה כך היא. שהרי אי אפשר לאכל האכיל, או איכל עם הפסילס. So if you want to eat, you take out the איכל. ולעשו תירו אלו לעשייסן בקביעה מיוחד לכך, דהיינו נפו וכבורו. What is napo? What is kvara? We'll discuss soon. That's the rules of Be'er. And now we'll go to Hilchos Shabbat in the Siddur, that there are two paragraphs related to Be'er. And we have to understand that, and we'll see what it says first. First case is, I have it plate of soup that a fly fell in. The im nofal zvuv a sharp sedes le kois elikoro. I have a cup of tea and something fell into it. I want to take it out. I don't want to drink it. So the only way to do it, he says, ein takoner aklish peich na kois. I spill out the fly or the pselas from the cup or from the plate. And you could do it. Why? שכיוון שנפילס הפסלס לחוץ הוא על ידי שאיכס ביודי הקייס עם המשקה שבתיכן ומתי הוא ביודי הרי זה נקרא Be'er eichel mit der pselas mutter kedi bist miyad. Since you're now in the middle of eating the soup from the plate or the tea from the cup and something fell in there, so you spill it out, it's considered eichel mit der pselas. And therefore, we have to understand why it is oichel meter pselas. If you have a cup that something fell into it and you want to spill it out, and you spill it out, so you're taking out the pselas from the oichel. If you have a fly fell into your plate of soup and you spill out the fly from the soup, you're taking out the pselas from the eichel. So why are you allowed to do it? And this explains because it's considered eichel metir pselas. Why is it considered eichel metir pselas? Because what you have in your hand, the plate or the cup, you're taking it out. You spill out the fly and you stay in your hands with the soup or with the tea. So even though you're throwing out the fly, it is considered oichel meter pselas. You're threw out the fly, and you take your plate of the soup. So it's considered oichel with their pselis. But why is it called like that? When you spill it out, it should be considered like you spill out the fly or the other pselis, and then it stays in your hand, the eichel. So why shouldn't this be considered as boirer pselis with the eichel? Then it's not allowed to. So, in order to understand when you spill out from a cup or from a plate is considered pselis with eichel, or when it's considered like eichel with pselis, we will see again what the Rabbi explains in the first sif of Smicha. We will see what he explains in other sifim, and we will try to understand when it is considered oichel with pselis and when it's considered pselis with eichel. So when it says in the beginning of Smicha what is considered oichel with pselis, and it's not allowed to because it's a kele, so he says two kelim.
Rabbi Levin, can I just summarize what you just said for a minute? Because you said that one of the svaras that even though you poured out the bug, but because of what's left in your hand is the soup, that might be still considered oichel b'teich pselis. Is that right? That's
Yes.
the still because even though you tilted the bug out,
Yes.
what's in your hand is left the soup. It still could be considered maybe oichel b'teich pselis.
Correct. And we will explain what the rules when you consider it like that and when not. So let's start with the first sif. He said, oichel mit pselis, if you do with the kele, it's also, even though it's oichel mit pselis. And he gives some examples. One is napo, and one is kvor. Let's see what is napo and what is kvor. Napo is when you have flour. When you make the flour, in the flour is mixed in some of the pills of the wheat called murson or subin. And how do you get it clean? You put everything in a zip and you zip it out so the kemach, the flour, goes through and falls into a pot under it. And what stays in your hand? The pills, the murson or the subin. And he says it's considered oichel mit pselis. And the only reason why it's also is because it's a kele that is made for that. Otherwise, you would be able to do it because it's oichel mit pselis, which means that the oichel goes through the sieve into the kele, and what stays in your hand is the pselis. So it's called oichel mit pselis. Not like we said before, when you spill out from the plate, what you spill out is spill out, and what's you left in your hand is called that you're taking it. So both are called oichel mit pselis. By the flour, it's oichel mit pselis because the oichel you put into a kele, and what's left in your hand is just left over. And by a fly, you say it's oichel mit pselis because what you take out from the plate is left over, and what you take in your plate, that's what you're taking. So how does these two things combine? So he gives another sample in the first seif. Napo and kvoro. What means kvoro? Kvoro is being explained more specifically in Siman Shin Chor Dalet. When you make dosh, and you take out the ga'ilim of the wheat, and you make from it flour, so the straws that stay there is food for the balechayim, for the behemoths. They eat it, but they can't eat everything because there is the moitz, which is what's growing in top of the wheat. They can't eat it. So you want to separate, give them only the tevel, not the moitz. How do you divide the moitz from the tevel? The moitz is very small, thin, like hair. And the tevel is large. So you take it in, you put it into a sieve with larger holes. So all the moitz is passing by. Staying in the sieve is the tevel, which is large. And you're not allowed to do it because it's a special kele. Kvoro is made for that. Otherwise, it would be muter because it's oichel mitoich psoilis. Why is it oichel mitoich psoilis? Because the oichel stays in your hands and the psoilis goes away. So how come Napo and Kvoro both are considered oichel mitoich psoilis? It's the opposite. But Napo, the flour goes through and the psoilis stays in your hands. But Kvoro, the moitz goes through and the teven, which is the oichel, stays in your hand. And they are both considered oichel mitoich psoilis. So I understand it like this. When you have flour and you sip it, so the flour goes into a kele. So when it goes into a kele, that's what you put there. But the moitz, you don't put it in a kele. It's garbage. You just sip it and throw it out. So what you do is you hold with your hands the oichel, the teven, and whatever is the moitz is garbage and going through, not going to a kele, goes on the ground. So then it's called oichel mitoich psoilis, what you hold in your hand, not what's going in garbage. But by the flour, it's going in a kele. So what's going in a kele, you put it into a kele, that's what you put there. So it's oichel mitoich psoilis.
Rabbi Levin, I know that in Shmira Shabbos Filchasa, there's a discussion if you could use a peeler for carrots.
We'll discuss it in the second half.
Because now you're bringing out.
No, peeling is the second half, which is a separate subject.
Okay.
That's the second paragraph of the Hilchos Shabbat. Now you would just trying to say, how come in these two cases it's considered oichel mitoich psoilis, and therefore we understand also what it says in Hilchos Shabbat, when you get the fly out, you're not getting the fly in a kele. You don't need the fly. You just get it out. What stays in your hands? The soup. That's the oichel. So you're taking it. Whatever is going to garbage, you're not taking it. It's going away. That's my understanding of it. And we will try to see several more seifim in Shinyu test how it works. Let's go in Shinyu test to Seif Yud Ches. when you have wine that has a lot of shmorim in the wine, and you want to separate them, so you need a sieve. But in the beginning, when there is the shmorim are in the bottom of the bottle, and the top of the bottle of the kele is wine, and it's not completely mixed. So when you want to drink, you spill from the bottle into a cup, and goes into the cup only wine, not the shmorim, because you didn't get so low yet. So you're allowed to do it. Why? Because you are taking eichel mitech pseles. You spill into a cup the wine that you want to drink. That's eichel mitech pseles. You're not spilling out the wine in the garbage. You spill it into a cup. So let's see how the Rebbe explains it in Sif Yud Ches. Muter laris benachas mikli lechaveri, כדי שהפסלס והשמורים משוער ובשולי הכלי, שהרי מותר דברי איכל אימש כמתיר הפסלס, שרצן לאוכלל שטסן לאלתר, כל שאין ברר על ידי כלי. Here, you spill it out with a kli, but it's not sipping, it's not a sip, you just spill it out with your hands. כאן אף שמערם מכלי לכלי, וכל מכן עיקר הברר נעשה על ידי יודו, ואיני חושב ברר בכלי, אלא כשמסלן בסודר, כפיפו וכייצא בזל. So you see again, since the wine goes into a cup, you're taking the wine out of what's left. So therefore it's considered eichel meter pseles. When will it be considered pseles meter eichel? So let's go in next Sif, in Sif Yotes. In Sif Yotes is when you fry with oil, French fry or whatever. After you finish, you want to take out only what you eat. So what do? You take the frying pan, you spill out the oil into another kele for tomorrow, and then what's left in the frying pan is the food. You're not allowed to do it on Shabbos. Why? Because it's boirer pseles mitoich eichel. Why is it considered pseles mitoich eichel? What you left in your hand is the eichel. But when you throw it out from the frying pan into another kele, you want to use it. You want to fry with it tomorrow again. So you're not throwing it out. You're throwing it in. So you're throwing in the pseles. Why? Because you're not eating today the oil. You're eating today only the potatoes, the potato chips. So that's the eichel. And when you throw it out to another kele, you're throwing out the eichel, because whatever you don't think you want to eat now is considered pseles. So you're putting in the pseles into a kele. So then it's considered pseles with a eichel. Let's see how he explains it in Sif Yotes. אבל שובן הצוף על גבי התבשיל, אוסור להרויסי כולי. אפילו כדי להיכל התבשיל לאלתר, מפני שהם שני מיני איכלים. איזה המין שאיכל לאלתר נקרא איכל. The potato chips is called eichel. Hashem, the oil is considered pseles. וכשמערה השומן שאין האיכלי של איכל, הרי זה ברר pseles with the eichel. Because you put it into a kele for tomorrow. Let's go now to Sif Chov Beis. When they make cheese, it separates the milk into two parts. The good part of the milk becomes cheese, becomes solid, and the water of it, which is called kum, is water, and you throw it out. So when you want to eat the cheese, you spill out the water and you leave in your keiler the cheese. Well, you spill it out in a keiler? No, you don't need it anymore. So you spill it out in the sink. So what would this be considered? Pselis mit der Egel or Egel mit der Pselis? Since you're not putting into a keiler that you need it for later, you just spill it out. So you bear what you left in your keiler from the kum, from the water. So it's considered, let's see how he said it in Sif Chov Hey. Im nosan akum, betech kli gamin, you put it into a special zip. Mehr Cholov, nicht finden tegen. They go out. You do das bear Egel mit der Pselis. Why? Because what's going out is not going into a keiler. It's going out. It's garbage. And what you have left in your keiler is what you think, what you need. So it's bear Egel mit der Pselis, but you're not allowed to. Because this keiler that you put it into is a special sip for the kum to go out and the cheese to stay. So it's like it's Egel mit der Pselis, because whatever is going out goes to the garbage. You're not putting it into a keiler, and what you left in your house, in your hands, is what you're taking. So it's Egel mit der Pselis, but you're not allowed to because you do it with a special keiler which is made for that. So if it's Egel mit der Pselis, you chayev. So that's why when you spill out the fly from the soup, it's called Egel mit der Pselis, and you're allowed to. Others are discussing that it doesn't fit with what it says in Shulchan Aruch, in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, and they try to find the reasons why he changed his mind. But the way we explain it, the way they understand it, is everything in Simen and Shiyutes, Aleph, and Sif Yutes, and Sif Yutes, and Sif Chofei, and in the Hilchos the Rabbi Shabbato is all the same rule as we explained it now. Let's go now to the second part of the Hilchos the Rabbi Shabbato, which is also related to Beir. And this is
Rabbi, you wanted to ask something about Sholom. You also want, before we move over to the next thing, you want to ask something?
Yeah. So in Sif Yutes, it doesn't seem to say anything about that you're pouring it into a keli, but that's the way that you explained it, and it's I understand that
he says that you need the shuman for later. And that's why it is considered pselis, because you don't need it for now.
Where?
Eise amin she'echel alter niko echel, ve'ashen niko pselis. So the shuman is called pselis because you're not eating it now, but you eat it later. You need the pselis for later. That's why it's called pselis. So obviously, if you need this for later, you're not throwing it out.
So when I read this, if I understood that it was you could have been putting it directly into the sink to go down
then
and
you
drink.
don't have to explain it that it's considered pselis because you need it for later. He says this what you need now is oichel. What you need later is pselis. If you need later, means that you put it into a keiler that you need later.
Okay. Okay.
That's
Thank
my
you.
understanding of this halacha.
Can I ask a question also?
Yes.
Earlier in this year, you mentioned about la'alter, about doing something right away. Why is it not considered if a person goes to shul in the morning, right?
So I didn't go into that because we didn't learn that, but he explained it in the beginning of Shin Yutes that the time that people are starting to go out of shul and coming home, then the lady in the house, when she knows now they're getting soon home, so when they prepare to go home, it's considered la'alter. But if they're still davening and they're still not preparing themselves to go home, it's not called la'alter because you're not eating it now. That's what he explains in Shittas. But we didn't go into that because that's not our topic today.
Okay. No, why not have, if let's say I don't have time, the suit is supposed to start, let's say, right away after davening, let's say. So I'm just not understanding why not say that the time before davening is called la'alter. It's the only time I have time, let's say, to prepare before the meal that was called for, let's say, 11 o'clock. I don't know, whatever, in the morning.
Okay, but when you're still davening and you prepare it, it's not derech achila. You're not eating it now. You're not preparing now to eat now. You're davening now. When you finish davening, you go home. So that's why it's not called derech achila. You're not eating it now. Derech achila is now. And what is the timetable? So I mentioned before, like 1 hour, because since you finish davening, you prepare to go home, and then you go home, you say Sholom Aleichem, and then you say Kiddush. So that's considered like an hour is about what it's the time.
But during the shir, somebody asked me, what's if somebody has a lot of guests? Moshe Rabashkin has to make for a lot of people.
I don't know what to tell you, because when you do for a lot of people, it's not always considered derech achila.
So what's on the turn?
I don't know the Fegerhof, and he will say how to do it. It's not always you have to do it like that. There are some things that you have to do la'alter, and those things that you do la'alter, there is a problem. Not only beir, there is more things. Teichen is also la'alter, and so it's always a question when you make the salat, if you make it thin salat. So question, you have to do it only la'alter, but that's not our subject today. We will go now to the second paragraph in the Siddur, which also needs explanation, and there is a machlekes in there how to explain the Alter Rebbe. Let's start what he says. He says, better don't eat nuts on Shabbos, because when you eat nuts and you break it, so it mixes the shells of the nuts and the food of the nuts. And then if you want to separate it, natural, you separate, you take out the shells and you put it on the side. So that's considered tzeles with the chaychel and your ever avere and also muktzeh. So therefore, try not to eat it Shabbos unless you broke it open before Shabbos and you took away the shells before Shabbos. But then he says that the problem of bear is if you break it and they are already separated, but they are mixed in. But if, as usually, when you open the nuts with a nut opener, it breaks into 2 or 3 pieces, and each piece has the nut in it. You still didn't separate them. So he says, if you didn't separate it yet, and you take out the shells, it's not considered beira. And you could do it. The reason why I say you shouldn't do it on Shabbos, because maybe it will separate. and will be mixed, and you will take out the shells. So then it's considered better. But if in every shell there is still a piece of food, and you take out the shell, it's not considered better. Why? You take out the shell. So you take out the pselas. And we get to the fact that Rabbi Walnut mentioned before. You peel bananas or oranges. So what you peel out is you take away the pselas. What is left, you're going to eat. But now you're taking away the pselas. So why could we peel bananas or oranges on Shabbos? He says only the nuts we shouldn't do it. But other food, we could peel. Why? So let's see, there is a Yerushalmi that says that you're not allowed to peel food on Shabbos. He speaks about shum, tume, shumim. Kad nivchar beklipaisa, shelater leisa me'aklipis, chayev b'shum berach. Because you take out the pselas and you leave the food. So how do we peel food on Shabbos? So there is two shittas. One shitta is the Rosh and the Marshal. Let's see what the Rosh says. He doesn't pass like the Yerushalmi, because in Talmud Bavli it doesn't mention that. So he says you're allowed to do it. Why are you allowed to? So he explains that when you have food in a pill, the pill is oichel. They're not separated yet. So it's all oichel. When you have an orange, you don't have a pill and the fruit. It's all one. When you take it out, you take out oichel. It's not considered boyer, pselas, with the regel. That's what the Rosh says. He says, nearly the gezim ubotnim shenishberu umonochem adayim bikliposom, like the case of the Alter Rebbe, loymikre shem pselas alayhu, given the chayu bochi vavi shoymer lepri. So it's oicher. Lidomila tzomis uklipim. When you eat fish, you take out the tzomis. Or clippers that are already taken out, but they are mixed. That's what the Rosh says. There is still room to argue what it exactly means. But the Yamshus Leime explains it more. The Marshal in Yamshus Leime explains it more. Min echod hu. Be'ezhem pselas alof. Be'eze inye shebetakin oichel. But Hashemer, you're not taking away pselas because it's only one food and it's called oleichel. That's the shitta of the Marshal and the Rosh that hold we do not pass like the Yerushalmi.
Where's this rush?
What?
Where's the rush? Where's the?
If you have the page, it says in Beitze, Perek Aleph, Simen Chov Gimel. The Yamshus Leime is in Beitze, Perek Aleph, Simen Mem Beis. But the Ramot doesn't paskin like them. He paskins like the Yerushalmi. So why do we peel fruit? So the Ramot says in Simen Shinchov Aleph in Shabbos, Siv Yotes, also likleif shumim upsolim shekoilef lahaniach Avalel Chilalter Shori. He says that yes, the Yerushalmi says it's also when you're not eating it right away. You peel it up because in 2 hours from now you want to eat it. So it's considered oichel meter pselis. Oichel meter pselis? You're not touching the oichel, you just take out the pills. Sure, you take out the pills. When it's mixed and you take out the food, so it's oichel meter pselis. When you take out the pills, pselis meter oichel. But now you cannot come to the food unless you take away the pselis. So right, you could say you're taking away the pselis, but it's there achille. You can't eat any other way. So even if it's pselis with the eichel, it's considered eichel with the pselis because it's there achille. So therefore, you are allowed to do it if you eat it right away. That's what he speaks about garlic and onions. Says the Mogen Avraham, it's not only that. Im kein af tapuchim osur liklis laniach. If you eat the apple, you want to peel it up. It's considered oichel meter pselis because you cannot come to the apple itself if you don't want to eat the pills. So it's der achille. So it's der achille. It's allowed if you eat it right away. But if you want to peel apples in order that later, a few hours later, you'll have guests and you want to give them, it's not lauter. It's not der achille. But it's considered eichel meter pselis. So now, the Rabbi explains in Siman Tov Kuf Yud that here the Ramon, the Mogen Avraham hold that we paskin like the Yerushalmi. And the Yerushalmi meire she oisel lehoniach. And therefore the Yerushalmi says that you're chayiv. Aber כשכלב לחם לאלתר, מותר אף לברר הפסלס כמי שכלב הקליפו, because it's der achille. These are the two shittas. So according to one shitta, the Rosh and the Marshal, you're allowed to peel oranges if you're going to serve it 3 hours from now. Because it's not eichel pselis, it's all eichel. But the Ramo and the Mogen Avraham and the Adi Rabo say that if you peel, it's considered derech achille. But if you leave it for late, it's eichel and pselis, but it's derech achille. If you don't want to eat it now, you want to eat it a few hours later, you're not allowed to. If you want to eat it now, you could peel it. Let's see now how the Alter Rebbe paskens in Shulchan Aruch and how he paskens in the Siddur. In Shulchan Aruch and Siman Shin Yutes, Seif Tes, he says, Mutor likleif tvuo mine kidneys שנמללו מהשרביט, מהשיבולים, מהשרביטים, בערב שבס, רק שיזוהר, שלאיקליף, אין לו מה שצורך לאכל לאלתר, אבל כדי לאכל לאחר שעות. Why? Because when you take off the pills, it's called derech achille. That's the heter. And derech achille, you are allowed only when you eat right away. But if you eat later, you can't. Now we'll come to the din of the nuts. That you break the nuts, and the nuts are still in the pills, in the shells. So we said before that the Rosh says that a gezim ubotnim shenishtabu Umunochim adayin bikliposam, you're allowed to take the shells. Why? The Rosh says because it's not boirer, because it is still in it, so it's all considered food, all considered oichel. So you could do it even if you don't want to eat it now, if you want to eat it later. But the Alter Rebbe, let's see what the Alter Rebbe says. He says in Hilchos after the Shabbat, in the next paragraph, Toiv im noya melech legezim veluzim b'Shabbos, elo im kein hitzio mikliposam erev Shabbos. Hine af beoit shapri munar b'kliposei, kulei miktosei, mutar lahat b'kliposei b'yodei. Like the Rosh says, but he says, tut noya. Only with your hands. And it's not considered boirer psoiles b'yoichel. He doesn't say it's not considered boirer. It's not considered boirer miteichel. Why? Because it's derech achilosei. So it's considered like eichel with the psoiles. So therefore, you're allowed to do it with your hands. If it's right away. The kolmakim, you shouldn't do it because later it mixes in, it separates and mixes, and you'll take it and you'll be over and there. So in Pashtus, now the Rebbe says here, like the Ramo and the Mogen Avrom and the Ani Rabbi, that it's not Psoiles mit the Heichel. It's considered like Heichel mit the Psoiles. And therefore you are allowed to only be Yodeh. Not with the Caleb. But the Tzemach Tzedek is still, that's how the Alter Rebbe explains, and that's why Reb Chaim Noel, Shulchan, he explains it like that. Shariat mur kosav mutter la'oser kliposeh biyodei, ve'im b'mishum beira, u'mevuar derak biyad mutter la'oser klipo, avol b'kli osur, ומוכר דשייר בזין יברה. וההתר הוא רק סמוך לסעודו. על כל חור במה שהיתר עבור היינו בסמוך לסעודו. ואף על פי תאו פסלס באיכל וכל מקים מותר דקנו דרך אכילה. ואיפה דרך אחר. So he's speaking like the Ramo, not like the Marshal. But the Tzemach Tzedek is still thinking if it's possible that the Alter Rebbe holds like the Rosh and the Marshal. The Alter Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek in Piskei Dinim says, Ein Moshekosem b'silur gabi egezim beit shapri chulu mutar lahosech kliposei lich'ere zeu al pidas rashal b'yam sheshleimet. So why shall we say that the Alter Rebbe holds like the Rashal and not like the Ramo and the Taz and the Mogen Avrom? So he's questioning. The Ktseitze Shulchan says that from what he says, Biyode is Buchar that he holds like the Ramo and Mogen Avrom. And what is it Negeya Lemaise? It's Negeya Lemaise, the Tzemach Tzedek says, when you eat fish on Shabbos, there is the atzomis in the fish. So there is big atzomis, and you have the small, thin atzomis. Like when you eat a herring, you have the small, thin atzomis in the herring. When you want to take out the atzomis of the herring, according to the Marshal, you could take it out. The wife doesn't want that the husband and the children should have, when they eat the herring, they should have to pull out the small atzomis. It's a whole uncomfortable task. So she does it in the morning. Says the Marshal, you could do it. Because as long they are still together, it's not considered clippings. It's considered food. So you take it out. But according to the Magen Avraham and Amo, you are allowed to do it because it's der chachila. Because you can't eat it with this together. So you are allowed to do it only before you eat, while eating. But you're not allowed to do it 2 hours earlier. So says the Tzemach Tzedek, לפי זה, צורך עיון באיכל דוגן ויש עצוmis טעמים בתיכון. The big one, you could take out the food. This small one, you cannot take out the food from this small, thin atzomis. You have to take out the atzomis, which is, say, listen to Hegel. But since then, Hachilosa, you're allowed to. But if it's not considered as toilets, im mutter lahatir atzomis, larashal is leman the shori. And you're lahakel, that you could do it. He is more late to say that you could do it. So the difference is, according to that, you could take out the small, thin atzomis from the herring, and now 2 hours earlier. But according to what they so if a Shulchan explains in the Alter Rebbe, then you could still take it out, but only while they are coming from Shul and preparing themselves to eat.
So in what way is that atzomis different than watermelon seeds? Watermelon seeds, you definitely can't do it early, but could you do it samach l'suda? No.
It's also the same thing is that like the shells of the gezim and like the thin atzomis of the herring.
You could do it before the suda.
According to the Rashal, you could, and according to Ramo, you could do it only close to the suda.
Yeah, but even you don't have to put it in your mouth and spit it out. You could take it out.
Who says that you should put it in? We discussed that der chachila means taking it away before you put it into the mouth.
Okay, well, aren't people machmer and they don't take it out? They don't take out the.
It's not because in the watermelon there is not a problem. Even if you eat in the middle of the week, you're going to eat it together and then take out the.
But that's intended.
The same thing is also by when you eat grapes and it has little ga'ilim, you take it out in your mouth and then you take it out much easier than taking it out. But
halacha megma rishna, you could take it out before.
it's hard.
Huh?
It's hard.
Yeah, but that's
Yes,
definitely
you could.
hard. Makes it even a bigger problem of bear.
In the chayre you could.
Wow. Okay.
Because
Now,
it's like pills. You can't take out the food from there. You could only take out that from the food. So it's considered, while you eat, it's considered der.
so soft dover, you said now the peeler for an apple, the peeler for a
Pillar
apple.
for apple is also negate to that. According to the Ramo, you're not allowed to use a pillar for apple on Shabbos. Because the pillar is a clear lekach. And you are doing it only der chachila. When you peel it with a pillar, it's not called der chachila. But if you peel it with a knife, it's not made for that. So then you could probably could. But according to Rashal, you could even do it with a pillar because it's not considered soilless. So what's the problem?
It's like cutting an apple in 4 pieces. Mit the shalach on the shelf, master side by side.
Yeah.
Okay, because alle brengen us dort 2 shittes, Magnet peeler und ich kann peeler.
Die 2 Schittes, die 2 Schittes zwischen dem Marschall mit dem Ramo.
Sholom, you want to ask a question? Because I want to try to corner Rabbi. Oh, give me a minute. Let me try to corner. If they supposed to coffee presses, they actually stroll they could coffee. It's not actually stroll they. You know, today everybody filtered water. and then they make press. Forget about the bishul part. We stup that up the coffee, not the shmar, the coffee, whatever.
Grounds?
On top is the
Beans?
basket.
The bean, is it from beans or from
The
grounds?
beans are taken.
Ground. The beans are ground. Like you put water. Forget about the bishul.
Go through a filter. Go through a
It's
filter.
like the village that the schmutz, the stuppman is set up.
Is it going to tell? There is nothing to talk about because this kele is like an apple kvoro. Even if it's considered egel mitir pseles, they're hachile, but when it's a kele that is made for that, you're not allowed to do it anyways.
If it's was the Velzog, stupp is nicht up all the way down. Lots of eichel, the Veltische Welt, the moderne Welt. You know where else? What was the other thing? What was the other thing? We had what was the other one? The other issue with that one about the
Turkish coffee.
The French press. The French press, that's what they do. Oh, forget
the water pitcher with the filter.
Top mentioned they only do water out of a filtered pitcher.
It's another subject. Has nothing to do with what we're discussing today. But what it says in Sholom that if you
why is that not
make
better?
it with,
Why is that not better? Why is it a different subject?
that's what it explains in senior test. If you could drink it without separating, then you could separate because you're just making it better. But if you cannot drink it without, then you're separating, you're not allowed to. So therefore they said, those people that don't drink water because there are little objects inside and they don't want to drink it because it's surin or whatever, they are not allowed to separate it. But if you don't care and you just want it better, then you could separate it. That's another subject. It has nothing to do with what we're discussing today.
Sholom, I'll get you ask.
Okay, I had a question about if you're saying it's derech achila to eat a fruit or anything like that, based on the fact that the only way to get to the eichel is by taking out or removing, being masalik that peel or whatever. So if let's say you have a bowl of lettuce and on top, the whole bowl of lettuce is covered on top with like bad lettuce, and the only way to get to the good lettuce is on the bottom. The Shulchan Aruch Harav doesn't seem to mention that.
It doesn't mention that. It mentions only if there is mixed, there is part like this and part like that. If you take, you can't take it out. But if you could come to the inside only when you take off the bottom, the top is like the pills.
So that would be mutter.
If you have to come there in order, if you have to take it off in order to get to the inside. Yes.
Almog, you want to ask something?
Yeah, my question was regarding the apple peeler. If it is, even though it's a kli meyuchad, isn't it still eichel mitaych eichel? And because the klipa is roy la'achila, it would be mutter?
It's eichel, pseles and eichel, derech achilasi. But derech achilasi doesn't help when you do it with a peeler that is made for that.
Why is an apple peel not considered
with
eichel?
special kale that is made for that, it's not called derech achila. You're not eating. You're just doing it with a special kale. That's why an apple kvoro, when you have the same thing, you want to eat only the inside, but you do it with an apple kvoro. It's not considered derech achila because it's a kale that is made for that.
My question is about the status of the peel. The status of the peel is considered psilus. Why?
It's considered psilus because you don't want to eat it. But it's considered derech achilase because you want to be able to come to the food.
Right. So when it comes to a min echad, even if one is a chefetz and one is ein a chefetz,
is the cheat of the rashal, then you could do it a pillar too because it's not considered boirer. But according to the Ramod, it is considered boirer, but it's derech achilase. So derech achilase, if it's a kele that is made for that, is not considered the Haggadah.
Understood. Thank you.
Yisrael, Yeshuv Yitzchak.
Yeah, just a general question about Beider. After you eat on Shabbos and you want to clean the table, so how does it work? You have let's say dishes and forks, and then you have the garbage and the plates, and you want to or let's say you have paper plates and you have forks that go in the sink.
Obviously, it is not part of Siman Shin Yotes of Beider, but in general, there is two kinds of pills or leftover. There is leftover that you could eat, which is not muktzah.
That's muktzah. He's going into.
No, I'm asking about Beider Bekalim. Like let's say
Why boil? Everything that stays there goes into garbage.
Okay, so let's say I have paper plates and I have forks like silverware, and I want to put the forks in the sink, and I'm putting the plates in the garbage with the garbage. How do you do it in a way that's not Beider? Like,
I don't know what to tell you, and there is more questions like that. Let me ask you a much simpler question. The davening shul comes to Kriyas Torah, you give them out Chumoshim.
yeah,
After Kriyas Torah, you
Like
take
the
away all the Chumoshim, you put them on the place, and they stayed with the Sidurim. By Kelim, it's the same thing. So the Sidurim are called like Egel.
right,
And the Chumoshim, since you need it for next week,
yeah,
consider like sailors.
yeah.
You're taking away all the Chumoshim, you put it in on the place.
Mhm.
It's the Egel.
Right.
I'm a diet not to do it. But some see, you're not there. The Chumoshim putting it on the place.
And it's
But
also
all these things is not a clear.
Rabbi Levin, that's not a tarubis. That's not urim. The whole bird is mentioning samish.
Okay, understand. On the table lays Sidurim and Chumoshim.
Okay. What is the Shavel? They all eat sandwiches on Shabbat.
There is no problem in sandwiches. Sandwiches, you eat with your mouth the food and you throw away the others. You're not separating them. You're not taking away. It's not muktzah because when you put it into your mouth,
Yeah, but when you're dropping it on the table.
and when it's after that, it's left in your hand, in your hand.
But that's the
left
burger.
your hand, you're allowed to. When it becomes muktzah and you still have it in your hands, you're allowed to keep it in your hands till you put it away.
Yeah, but they make piles on the table, spikes on the dish, dort nicht ein Muktzah.
Dort nicht im muktzah und dort nicht der Hälfte, wie baut sich Payats in them. That's why it's considered partial rain. But shells of nuts, it's not with your spires, so it's not considered. That's why it says in Sholom in Shem Chesif Samach that the shells of the nuts you're not allowed to take off the table. Only with special ways, but it's not simple. So even if you eat that, that's what the movement, what the Rebbe says, that the nuts is considered muktzeh because it stays on the table and you can't take it off. Only if you take the whole tishtach with some of it is food. It's a whole complicated subject, and that's why it's also a problem. Also, by the night seder, when you peel the eggs, each one has its egg. So the peel of the eggs is not considered food. It's not like the orange pills. And there's a problem of taking it off the table. And when you start eating, you want to take off this eggs shell. So it's a problem. When I do it in my house, they bring the garbage can near the table. Each one is filling the egg and bring the pills direct into the garbage can. but you don't leave it on the table because otherwise there will be a problem with it. But that's dealing in muktzah, not in Veda.
I don't know if you want to, what's the Meister with Arbus?
That's not for today.
Okay, but Alter Rebbe puts it in the same Hilchos Rav.
There's 2 paragraphs. Each one speaks about another subject, and the Arbus is a complicated subject. It's not on one.
Okay. Anybody else before Rabbi? He's overtime. Anybody else? Michelle?
Yeah, I want to, if I can ask about the Melilos that we were talking about with the shells, really the nuts.
Today. The subject of Melilos is a complicated subject and a separate subject, and we're not going to touch it today.
Okay. What about the nuts?
What?
The nuts, where it says it has 3 shells. And he's
The guys, I mean, Alter Rebbe makes
The nuts, breaking the nuts is the part of dosh, not of part of Beir, which is a separate subject.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, when you mentioned about oranges and bananas, so you said it's derech achila to peel them because it's impossible to eat them otherwise. You could eat them otherwise. You could cut the orange with the peel on it into a few sections, and you could eat the inside out from the peel.
When you peel it, it's derech achila because you want to get, without cutting it, you want to get to the fruit, and that's derech achila.
So
Magen Avraham says, Mishum be'in kein after puchim osur liklev la'aniach. But if you want to eat it now, it's derech achila. Even though you could theoretically cut it in pieces and eat it in a different way.
Okay.
Okay, Gracie Yashikoyev, thank you very, very much. I'm sure this helped us out a lot. And Yashikoyev, Shimshon, you wanted to add something?
No, it's good.
All right. Okay, Yashikoyev, Rabbi Levin, and call to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Levin.
Goyach.
Grace Shakir.
Thanks.
Be well, everyone.